Khouri. He's an author, analyst, and distinguished public policy fellow at the American University of Beirut. Thank you so much for being with us on the program. What do you make of these reports that have been making rounds on Israeli media that Trump is pressuring Netanyahu to accept a ceasefire deal and end the war once and for all?
I think we have to explore these reports carefully, but not totally believe them at face value, because we've seen not only in this last year and 8 months, but we've seen in the last 20, 30 years, all kinds of reports that, especially if they come out of the Israeli press or the American press, they're reflecting the viewpoints of governments in Israel or the U.S. more than anything else, and maybe even partisan groups within Israel or within the U.S. So I think we need to be very careful with those reports and not to expect them to materialize into anything significant soon. They could be a sign that there is pressure that's going to be imposed on Israel by the U.S., but we have to wait to have evidence of that. There's no evidence right now.
And in the meantime, the attacks across the Gaza Strip continue, including the ones at these aid sites. How bad does the failure of these U.S.-Israeli aid sites make Trump look after boasting about it for so long, when the fact is very little people have received aid and a lot of people have been killed?
Yeah, I don't think the failure or success of these sites makes any difference to Trump. The problems that have been encountered at these distribution sites have been logistical, have been political, and they have other dimensions to them with some of the gangs in Gaza that have been armed by the Israeli government that are stealing some of this aid. So this is not a serious process. This is a diversionary process to make it look like the Israelis and the Americans are actually feeding the people of Gaza, when in fact they're creating these death traps where 20, 30, 40 people are dying almost every day, mostly shot by Israelis. So we really can't assess those distribution sites by the same criteria that we would assess, say, does this car run smoothly or does this other car run more smoothly? This is not a straightforward situation. This is political contestation, propaganda. They're trying to make it look like the Israelis are being nice to Palestinians. In fact, the amount of aid that's coming to the people who go to get this aid is quite insignificant. If you take the whole population of Gaza, it can't be more than 5, 6, 7% or something like that, I would guess. And the nature of the food is not particularly suitable. They're giving them things that they need, water, to boil water and to do other things that's not available. So again, this is a propagandistic process more than it is a serious one. It's like the port that was maritime port that was done last year, the airdrops. These are designed to take attention away from the fact that there is a genocide that's killing hundreds of thousands of people.
Right. I mean, let's remind our viewers, more than 150 starving, very hungry Palestinians have been killed trying to get aid from these sites. And the international community has not only failed to allow the unrestricted flow of aid into Gaza, but has failed to stop Israel from conducting these attacks.
Right. And so you have the propaganda war is going on, the military war is going on, and then there's a political diplomatic war going on. And all three of these things have to be assessed together to try to figure out where are we in this process. How much longer will the world continue to just watch the genocide take place, the most inhuman, criminal, cruel mass killing of civilians mostly, and destruction of an entire society that has happened in the decades and decades of modern history. And there's a fourth dimension now. If you look at the flotilla that tried to come into Gaza that was intercepted by the Israelis on the high seas, you look at the Great March on Gaza, which is scheduled for the 15th, a land convoy through Tunisia and Egypt to try to get into Gaza. They're not going to get in, I don't think, like the flotilla, the ship wasn't able to get in. But these are not designed to actually enter Gaza. They know they're not going to get in. They're designed to be part of a process of political pressure, mobilizing people, energizing people, politicizing people. You know, I remember back in the Vietnam War in the United States when I was a student in the late 1960s, you had Catholic priests, the Berrigan brothers, throwing animal blood on the files of conscripted soldiers, American young men who were drafted to go into the army. And this was obviously, people said, oh, it's a publicity stunt. It's not just a publicity stunt. It's a process of political resistance, mobilization, and protest. And the same thing is going to happen in Gaza. It's already happening. You're getting pressure through acts like the ship and the march and other things that's forcing governments to try to do more to stop what the Israelis are doing. You've had 5 governments in Europe yesterday announce they're going to sanction the 2 right-wing extremist Zionist leaders in the government. So these things go slowly, but they only happen. You only get governments taking serious action when there is public protest against them in the Western countries, mostly because they're the ones who are funding this war. And remember, you know, Trump's, what he says with the reports about he's telling Netanyahu stop the war, he's still sending him all the armaments. He's still vetoing Security Council resolutions. So you need to be really careful about the information that's thrown out there, which is propagandistic, whereas what people do, their actions, are much more telling of where we are.
Indeed. Rami Khouri, thank you so much for being with me here on TRT World and sharing that insight with us.
Thank you.